I graduated college in 2013 with a degree in music education. I'm the local music teacher. I've taught nonstop since then. I've worked at 3 different schools, teaching choir, piano, and general music. Teaching from kindergarten all the way up to seniors in high school. I've been teaching for 6 years, and every year it happens at the same time at the end of the school year. The same feeling of relief and kind of disbelief that I actually made it through another year. 6 years may not seem like a long time to some of you who've been doing it for decades. Don't know how you do it. But to me, I always think back to when I was a first-year teacher, and I was a hot mess. And when I was a first-year teacher, I couldn't even imagine being a second-year teacher. So the fact that I'm in it 6 years, I'm pretty proud of myself. But it's always, it's interesting to think back to your first year of teaching. If you knew me my first year of teaching, which thankfully I don't think anyone in here did, you didn't know me as a teacher. I was such a mess my first year. I was always unhappy. It felt like something was missing in my life. So at the end of my first year teaching, I made a choice that sometimes I regret. I picked up the phone and I made an insane phone call, and I got me a second job. That's not a strange story yet, but it will be eventually. I went after this job because it seemed like fun, and it is fun. I enjoy my second job, which is something not everyone can say, and I know I'm blessed for that. However, I don't still have this job because it's fun. I have this job because I realized I can't live without my second job. Financially, it's just impossible. Ever since college, I feel like I've always been drawn to interesting and unique jobs. I feel like that's one of my favorite parts about teaching, is you never really know what to expect. We can meticulously plan and plan and plan. Never exactly goes how we expect it. You never know what's going to come out of a student's mouth. You never know what's going to go into a student's mouth. But one of the most fun surprises, I feel like, in my life as a teacher, one of the favorite things is running into students outside of school. It happens to every teacher I know. I literally don't think I know a teacher that it's not happened to. Sometimes it's fine and it's normal. Sometimes it's like cringy, awkward, like I was compared to like the episode of The Office, Scott's Tots. It's like that awkward. Thank you for at least knowing that. Like it's awkward. I've run into students at the grocery store. I've run into students at the movies. I've run into students at the gym. But my favorite place to run into students at is it's just their open-mouthed, dumb-faced expression when they see me at my second job. It's a seasonal job that only lasts typically from about April to October, so thankfully I get about 6 months off a year. That's pretty sweet. My boss likes to joke that this is when I'm allowed to have a social life. He has a very optimistic view of how much free time teachers have. It is a seasonal job, but it's not just a summer job. I often have to go into work during spring and fall right after I get finished teaching. And I'm going to quickly walk through what that's like, that harebrained pressure. I finish the school day, I make my phone calls home, and then quickly jump in my car, drive across town, and hope that I don't get stopped by a train, which in Indianapolis is almost impossible now. I get to work, I pay for my parking meter, I grab my uniform, I go into work, and I start getting ready for the night. My first duty for my job starts typically around 4:30. School day ends for me at 4:15. Sometimes I already have customers there waiting on me. It can get a little hectic with that, but no matter what, when it comes to that, I focus my mind, I change my clothes, and take a deep breath, and I become a different person. La bruna gondoletta apprestava caro, oltre il canal m'aspetta, colui che ben io vo. Se così amo tu sai, devieni non sarà, e quel che tu vorrai, prometto a te donna. Sorry about that. La bruna gondoletta apprestava carol, o altri canal m'aspetta, colui che ben mi va. Ciao, my friends. Mi chiamo Drago. My name is Drago. And if you haven't put it together yet, I moonlight as one of Indianapolis' own singing gondoliers. Thank you. I spend the warm months of the year rowing a 40-foot-long, 2,000-pound Venetian-designed gondola up the canal just right outside this building. I sing traditional Italian songs and regale my passengers with history and fun facts about the gondola, about the canal, and about Venice. I typically work about 5-6 days a week. And obviously, that often includes school nights. Sometimes after I finish a shift on the canal, I don't get home until about 10:30 or 11 o'clock at night, if not later, sometimes early into the next day, which leads to levels of exhaustion I've never known before I took this job. I did this as a second-year teacher. I'm still doing it today. There are a lot of big positive things about being a gondolier. I don't want to make you think that my life is terrible. I really do enjoy this job. I get to sing, I get to act. I basically have a captive audience for my one-man show. No one has ran out of my show, so... I get to work outside. The people watching on the canal is phenomenal. You always get to meet a lot of really cool dogs on the canal, which is a big thing for me. And the canal itself is just one of the most beautiful parts of Indianapolis. I have become, in the past 6 years as a singing gondolier, I feel like I have labeled myself as a G-list local celebrity. What I've defined that as is some people recognize me some places sometimes. That's not just my students I'm talking about. I've been on news stories across the country. I've been in ad campaigns around Indianapolis. Countless social media posts, like people will send me screenshots of someone's Instagram. It's like, hey, that's you. Yeah, no, that's me. And I'm a little bitter about this one, but last summer I was left on the cutting room floor of the episode of Man vs. Food that came to Indianapolis, so still a little upset about that one. But everyone is always happy or celebrating on a gondola. If you've ever seen people on the canal, they always, hopefully, look happy on my rides. I've rode for numerous birthdays, dates, proposals, anniversaries, even wedding celebrations and ceremonies themselves. It's difficult to think about the school day that just ended for me when I'm busy celebrating with other people. It's actually a very nice way to clear my mind of the school day. But sometimes the worlds do collide because life's fun that way. When students do see me on the canal, it's one of my favorite moments. Again, this is one of my favorite surprises. I'll be rowing along the canal and I'll be singing a song. And I look over and I see like a concerned student. They're squinting at me. They're looking around to like see if this is real. And like it's weird, I can hear them whisper. They're like, Mr. Gould. Of course, I'm like entertaining my captive audience. And I look over at them and I give them a huge wave and I say, ciao, my friends, see you Monday. And it's interesting. One of my favorite encounters like that, this past summer, there was a student who was being pulled in a wagon by their mother, who I had never met this mother yet, being pulled along the side of the canal as I'm rowing and I'm singing, and he's a first grader. And he gets really excited, and he looks over and he sees me, and he's excited, he's confused, and he's like, Mr. Gould, Mr. Gould, Mr. Gould, and he keeps saying my name. I'm singing, so I can't stop singing because that's my job. And I look over at him and just kind of give him a little wave. His mom's reaction is something I will never forget to the day I die. She looks back at him, she looks over at me, looks back at him, and just goes, you don't know him? That's just some guy doing his job. I was so tempted to like run with that, but he called me out on it the next day at school, and I couldn't keep it up. This past summer, and this is where the title of my speech comes in. This past summer, I was running for a huge party over at the State Museum. I'm all turned around now, it's somewhere over here. That way. I was running for a huge party there, about 300 to 400 people. They book us out for 4 to 5 hours a night, and this was a school night. I think it was a Wednesday. So it wasn't really summer. This was early fall. And I'm exhausted. My voice is shot. I've been teaching. I've been singing for, again, hundreds of people. I want to go home. I'm tired. And I'll never, again, this is another moment. I'm so thankful for this job because it has supplied me with an infinite number of moments like this, but Ronak has told me 10 minutes. So a gentleman walks up to me, and he's wearing a bright, extravagant, expensive-looking blue suit. I'll never forget the way he looks. He honestly reminded me of a character from the Hunger Games. Just the extravagant suit. And he walks up to me and he sticks his hand out and he says, "I've been listening to you sing all night, and I want to give you my card. I'm an agent in New York." Yeah. Well, earlier a middle schooler wrote graffiti about me, and now I'm getting an agent's card. And honestly, when he offered that to me, I feel like I don't have a strong memory of this part, but I feel like I laughed at him just because I was exhausted. I wanted to go home. But he assured me he was serious, and he handed me his business card. And I just stuck it in my pocket, went home that night. And again, this was about midnight. And I get home, and I get online, and I actually look up this talent agency. I'm like, who's this guy? I can't believe, someone like, expected like some rinky-dink small agency. They represent Flowrida. I was flabbergasted. Like, I ignored it at first, and then I saw Flowrida's name, and for some reason, that set off a 10-second fantasy in my head. Where I quit teaching. And I became a full-time performer, hopefully not a gondolier, but a full-time performer. And that business card is still on my refrigerator today. I never called, and if I'm being honest, I never will. It's honestly now it's like a little badge of pride, like, hey, this guy thought you were good. But in that moment, I weighed my options. And it was an absolutely ridiculous situation, and I love ridiculous situations. But I seriously weighed my options, and I didn't want that. As much as I would love to take Andrew's advice and take up that offer and, try and make more money than I have now, I didn't want it. I weighed my options of giving up teaching and being a full-time performer, and I love gondoliering, but I don't want to do it forever. My goal was to quit last year. I'm doing it because I need to pay rent. I love teaching despite what I make. I love teaching regardless of the fact that they don't pay us well. I love teaching despite the fact that middle schoolers will write graffiti and chew on pencils. That's all I want. I don't want to be famous. I'll take my G-list local celebrity fame, and that's tops. I'm very happy being a teacher. Happy, just very, very tired. Thank you.